All right, shalom, shalom. First off, give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakar Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, all the men, the women, and the children who follow. So as you can see, this lesson is going to be about the statue and the four beasts, okay, going into Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. And Lord's will, this lesson is going to be edifying. It's always good to go over these breakdowns, just as a foundation. A lot of people may know these scriptures. A lot of people don't know these scriptures. So, it's all through edification and the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. So we're going to start with Daniel chapter 2, and we're going to go 31 through 34.
This is Daniel chapter 2 and verse 31. It says, Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces.
It's speaking about all the major powers and rulerships over the years, starting with the head being Babylon, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Greeks, the Romans, and we're going to get in details with all of these, but we're just introducing them right now. So let's go to Daniel, and it's pretty much the same. These are the reason why we're doing Daniel 2 and 7 is because it's speaking about the same empires, the same things pretty much. So we're just covering them both in one lesson. All right, so let's jump to Daniel 7 and start at 1 through 3.
This is Daniel chapter 7 and verse 1. It says, In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea.
Right, the four winds upon heaven, speaking about, sorry, go ahead.
And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another.
The four beasts diverse from one another. So just like the statue speaking about four different types of metals, this one's speaking about four different types of beasts. All right. So of course they all correspond with each other, and now we're going to go ahead and just dive deeper into these animals, these beasts, and these different metals. All right. So first one, of course, is the Neo-Babylonian kingdom. All right, which is that head of gold, Babylon. All right, which reigned from 605 BC to about 539 BC, roughly. Now, when you go into Babylon, there's a couple things of course, the first thing that you'll see is the it's called the Lamassu, right? All right, so that's this guy right here. It's like a griffin, if you will, and this is all over the Babylonian kingdom, and it's not ironic. While the scriptures speak of it as a lion with wings as well. All right, this is almost like the mascot, if you will, of Babylon. Let's just read this real quick.
It says, The Lamassu is a celestial being from ancient Mesopotamian religion, bearing a human head, symbolizing intelligence, a bull's body, symbolizing strength, and wings an eagle to symbolize freedom.
Right, so it's depicted all over, ancient Babylon. They believed them to be guardians, and it's all over the architecture. But matter of fact, here another depiction. But architecture. One big thing that Babylon is known for was definitely its architecture. Let me see if we can get some pictures here. So, the Hanging Gardens. All right. The blue brick buildings and all the detail that was put into it. It was very prestigious, which is why it is that head of gold. All right. It's the head of gold. It represents, it being, of course, wealthy. It's really the very first metropolitan area, the city of Babylon, and the rulership of Babylon, the first real kingdom of the ancient world. All right, this is where everything started. This is where the 62nd minute started in Babylon. A lot of things started in this time period. Let's get a couple scriptures here. Daniel 2 and start at 36 to 38.
This is Daniel chapter 2 and verse 36. It says, "This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the power of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand."
Yeah, man, it's the power, the strength, the glory. That's why, it's that head of gold. That's why, it's also a lion. A lion represents what? The king of the jungle. It was that place to be. It was that dude, so to speak, in that day.
God, it says, "And hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold."
Yeah, thou art this head of gold. This is Daniel speaking to the king Nebuchadnezzar. All right, Nebuchadnezzar is, of course, the most infamous ruler of the Babylonian kingdom. He was pretty much the founder. He was the one who was about that action. He's also the one who sieged Jerusalem. All right, so we're gonna read about that. We can get into that. 2 Kings 25.
This is 2 Kings chapter 25 verse 1. "And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his host, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it. And they built forts against it round about. And the city was besieged until the 11th year of King Zedekiah."
Yeah, so when you're going back into the history, Nebuchadnezzar was conquering at that time. He was conquering all of his land. Matter of fact, we have a map here just to give you a little bit better visual. Nebuchadnezzar was conquering all this land up here, and you actually had, the king of Egypt wanting to go through Israel to go and fight him. But, they didn't want to let him go through. It was a whole conflict, and he and I believe Zedekiah ended up being tribute to the king of Egypt, and then he went up to go fight Nebuchadnezzar anyways, and he of course lost. But it's a lot going on at this time. But let's go back to the scripture.
Verse 3. "And on the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine prevailed in the city, and there was no bread for the people of the land."
Yeah, because when you siege a city, all right, you encompass it, you circle around it, okay, and you wait them out. They can't get anything in, they can't get anything out. So if they don't have a fresh water source, what are they going to use for water? Once they eat all their cattle and livestock and all of that, the scriptures speak about us eating, the leather, us eating pigeon dung and eating babies, things of that nature. And that's going to come back, when we're in the last days in these times. But just to give you an idea on what the conditions were like.
Verse 4. "And the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between two walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldees were against the city round about, and the king went away toward the plain.
Yeah, so like I said, they had circumpassed the city. So anyone that got out, they were captured. You know, but the king tried to get away anyways. Go ahead.
And the army of the Chaldees pursued after the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his army were scattered from him. So they took the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon to Riblah, and they gave judgment upon him. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon.
And I believe the prophet Jeremiah was telling him that he just needs to bow down, to not to buck up against the king of Babylon, because the Most High had sanctioned for this to happen. But Jake want to be hard-headed, and this is what happened.
And in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem. And he burnt the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, and every great man's house burnt he with fire.
Yeah, man. So this is the first destruction, or the destruction of the first temple, should I say? All right. And of course, the temple was destroyed a few more times, and there's been a lot of sieges of Jerusalem. But this is the first one, and this is how it went down.
It says, and all the army of the Chaldees that were with the captain of the guard break down the walls of Jerusalem round about.
Right. What is the walls of Jerusalem represents? It represents safety. Every city had a wall around it so that it can defend itself. Well, if there's no wall, you can't defend yourself. So anybody that's left can't put up a defense. Go ahead.
Now the rest of the people that were left in the city, and the fugitives that fell away to the king of Babylon, with the remnant of the multitude, did Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carry away.
Right, so that's how the children of Israel went to captivity in the Babylon. All right, so that's it that we need on that. Let's get to the Battle of Opis. Here we go. Let me see. Just go with this one.
Okay, so this is the Battle of Opis. It says, the Battle of Opis was the last major military engagement.
Hold on, before we get that, did we get
Daniel 7?
Yeah, we need to get Daniel 7.
This is Daniel 7 and verse 4. It says, the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it.
Yeah, so of course, that lion, the lion being majestic, okay, the same way as the gold is majestic, all right, and it had wings. It flew over the earth because, like I said, it took over the majority of the quote known world at that time. Not really the known world. Of course, there's people in other places, but it's the first major kingdom. I'll say, nothing had ever been seen before like this. Coming from all these different regions, encompassing all these different lands and rulerships. Now we can go into the Battle of Opis.
So the Battle of Opis was the last major military engagement between the Achaemenid Persian Empire and the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which took place in September 539 BC during the Persian invasion of Mesopotamia. At the time, Babylonia was the last major power in Western Asia that was not yet under Persian control. The battle was fought in or near the strategic riverside city of Opis, located north of the capital city of Babylon in modern-day Iraq.
Right, so if you look at this map and compare it to this map, you can see how Babylon had everything from the north of the Persian Sea and west. All right, and if you go to the north of the Persian Sea and west, this is actually right where that line is. Right where that line is about to split it in the left and right. That's about where the Babylonian kingdom was. All right, from about here to the left, and then you had the Persians and the Medes. They were coming from over here. The Persia being Iran, all right, which is about right here. All right, so the Persians and the Medes, they're conquering lands over here. They get strength. Now the only thing left to do is to take down the Babylonian Empire, like I said, which is to the west.
Okay. So it says, so the battle was fought in or near the strategic riverside city of Opis, located north of the capital city of Babylon in modern-day Iraq, and resulted in a decisive victory for Persia. Shortly afterwards, the Babylonian city of Sippar surrendered to Persian forces, who then supposedly entered Babylon without facing any further resistance.
Yeah, so they were taken down. All right, and that's all due to prophecy. That's all speaking, Slakia, I'm on the wrong page. Speaking of the kingdoms, you know what I'm saying? Going from that gold to the brass, moving from that lion to the Slakia, the gold to the silver, and moving from the lion to the bear. All right, so now we're going to go into the second leg of the quadruped, the second leg of the statue and the beast. All right, being the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, of course, being synonymous with Cyrus the Great. All right, let's just read a little bit about him. To start it off.
So this is Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was the first Achaemenid emperor. He founded Persia by uniting the two original Iranian tribes, the Medes and the Persians. Although he was known to be a great conqueror who at one point controlled one of the greatest empires ever seen, he is best remembered for his unprecedented tolerance and magnanimous attitude toward those he defeated. What's that word?
Yeah, we're gonna look that up.
Magnanimous, which means generous or forgiving, especially toward a rival or less powerful person.
Kind of. So he had mercy and upon his enemies, pretty much.
So it says, upon his victory over the Medes, he founded a government for his new kingdom, incorporating both Median and Persian nobles as civilian officials. The conquest of Asia Minor completed, he led his armies to the eastern frontiers. Hyrcania and Parthia were already part of the Median kingdom. Further east, he conquered Drangiana.
Yeah, we good with that. Let's get into this Daniel 7 and 5.
Daniel chapter 7 verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side.
Right, it raised itself up on one side because, of course, we read that it's the Persian and the Medes, right? And the Persians were stronger than the Medes. We just read how Cyrus was a great emperor who was of Persian descent, okay? And he let the Medes come along with him. So the him raising up on one side is the Persians being stronger than the Medes, okay?
And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it.
Right, and those 3 ribs represents 3 rulerships that the Persian Medo Empire took down. Of course, the first being the Babylonian Empire, the Egyptian Empire, and the Kingdom of Lydia.
And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh.
Right, devour much flesh, gain much land. Because, going back to the maps, they started over here. The brother read Hyrcania and Bactria, All these are Eastern empires, Draconia. These are Eastern empires, but they took their kingdom and they went west. Go west, young man. And they conquered, all these places. Babylon being right here, Egypt being right here, Lydia being over here. They took all these places down and they spread their empire. So they devoured much flesh. All right, let's get Daniel 2. And 39.
And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee.
Right, so this is an inferior metal. So, of course, it represents Persia, 539 BC to about 331 BC. And while silver is still a very valuable metal, lots of coins, lots of currencies have been minted in silver, it's still inferior to gold, right? It's just a peg down, because in prestige and just way of life, Babylon's the measuring stick, so to speak. All right, that's why it's that head of gold, and Persia's just a tad underneath it. All right, even though they took them down. Also, as we go lower within the statues, the value of the metal goes down. It's inferior, but the properties of the metal, it's a harder metal as we go. 24 karat gold is very soft. You can bend it. You can put it in your mouth and bite it and bend real gold. That's why you only get, most people will rock like 14 karat, 18 karat gold, because 24 karat gold, it breaks easily. So you put a base metal in there with it to give it some kind of like tensile strength so that it can hold up. Okay, so that's why that it's the breast of silver. All right, just a little peg underneath. All right, let's jump to Daniel 8 and verse 3.
This is Daniel chapter 8 and verse 3. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other.
Right, and that's going into the same reasoning as the bear being stood up on one side, because the Persians are stronger than the Medes.
And the higher came up last.
And the higher one came up last, speaking about the Persians. Okay, moving right along. 2 Chronicles.
This is 2 Chronicles chapter 36 verse 22. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus said Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth had the Lord Yahweh of heaven given me, and he hath charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is as the brother said earlier, the king's heart is in the Most High's hand, and he's going to turn him wherever he lists. So, the Most High put the spirit on Cyrus to allow us to come back and build the temple in which Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed. Who is there among you of all his people? The Lord Yahweh his power be with him, and let him go up.
Yeah, man, who's all you Israelites out there, who's willing to come back and build up your temple? Go ahead and do it. He restored all the gold that was sacked from the temple, and he allowed us to come back and to build our temple. But along the way, when you read in the book of Ezra, we start getting into like the 4th chapter, the 5th chapter, we had, the haters, you had the Samaritans and they wrote letters to Artaxerxes. They wrote letters to Darius, telling them, "Hey, don't let these guys go back and make their temple. When they get their own God, they do their own things. They don't want to listen to the laws of the land. They're gonna, be rebellious, so on and so forth." And Artaxerxes stopped the construction of the temple. Okay, but we're gonna read about what Darius did. So we're gonna start at 6 and 1.
Con. This is Ezra chapter 6 and verse 1. It says, "Then Darius the king made a decree, and search was made in the house of the rolls, where the treasure was laid up in Babylon. And there was found at Achmetha, in the palace that is in the province of the Medes, a roll, and therein was a record thus written. In the first year of Cyrus the king, the same Cyrus the king made a decree concerning the house of the Most High at Jerusalem. Let the house be builded, the place where they offered sacrifices, and let the foundation thereof be strongly laid, the height thereof 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 80 cubits, with 3 rows of great stones, and a row of new timber, and let the expenses be given out of the king's house." And also,
So he's basically commissioning us to rebuild the house of the Most High. Given all the length, width, and the height, all of that, man. Go ahead.
"And also let the golden and silver vessels of the house of the Most High, which Nebuchadnezzar took forth out of the temple which is at Jerusalem, and brought into Babylon, be restored, and brought again unto the temple which is at Jerusalem, every one to his place, and place them in the house of the Most High."
Yeah, man. So we were able to actually go back, rebuild our temple, rebuild Jerusalem, rebuild the kingdom of Israel. Okay, so let's get the battle of Gaugamela.
This is the battle of Gaugamela. It says, also called the battle of Arbela, took place in 331 BC between the forces of the army of Macedon under Alexander the Great and the Persian army under King Darius III. It was the second and final battle between the two kings, and is considered to be the final blow to the Achaemenid Empire, resulting in its complete conquest by Alexander.
Yeah, man. You had Alexander, the Greek freak. He came and he took down the Perso-Median Empire. All right, whose leader was Darius III at this time. So let's transition. Transition over to the Greeks. Of course, them ruling from 331 BC to about 168 BC. Okay, of course under the Greek freak. So let's jump into Daniel 2 and 39.
God says, "And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth."
Yeah, so as we said, as we go down within the statue, the value of the metals is getting lower, but the strength of the metals is getting higher, because these were, as time is going, you can actually see the weaponry getting stronger. Okay, so now instead of just using swords and shields or whatnot, now you actually have, I believe it's called the Bronze Age. Give me 1 second. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, that's lucky. That's something totally different. But you were actually able to have stronger weaponry, and the Greeks, them being the very first Edomite rulership, that's Esau's gift. Matter of fact, can we get that real quick?
This is Genesis chapter 27 and verse 38. "And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answering and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above, and by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother.
Yeah, and by the sword shall thy live. So Esau's gift was of course the weapon. All right, Cain, a killing weapon. So when they came over, it was pretty much cursed. It was lights out. All right, other empires didn't stand a chance. Which we're going to go into that here shortly. Was that it on 39?
Yep.
All right, let's jump into Daniel 8 and do 8 and 5.
This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 5. It says, And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes.
Right, speaking of Alexander the Great. Okay, go ahead.
And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power.
Yeah, so this he-goat met up with that ram, and they had battle. Right, we just read that, which was the battle of Opus. Huh? No, Gargamella. Gargamella. Go ahead.
And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand.
Yeah, man, can nobody deliver the rulership of the Persians and Medes from the kingdom of the Greeks? All right, that's how the story was written via Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right, it's just how the story goes. All right, Alexander the Great, he was also led by the Most High. All right, to take over all those lands, because everything had to be done, decently and in order. Let's get Daniel 7 and 6.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it four wings of a fowl.
So like a leopard, and when you see Alexander the Great, when you see pictures of him, he's always depicted, with leopard skin, or he had I don't know if you want to call it a hat or a hood, a leopard, hood, which proves the validity of the Bible, because this was written 400 years, before Alexander, and it's clearly speaking about him.
It says, which had upon the back of it four wings of a fowl.
Right, when you go into those four wings that it's speaking about his four generals, Alexander's four generals.
The beast had also four heads, and dominion was given to it.
Right, and dominion was given into it. So let's go into the four generals real quick. Matter of fact, was it 8 and 9?
Verse 8 and 8.
Yeah, go to 8, yeah.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. It says, Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. Right,
when he was strong, when he had conquered all this land, because when you look at Alexander's, his land that he conquered, he basically took over everything that the Persians, the Medes had, and a little bit more in Egypt. He went further east, he went further west, because he came from the west. So he already came from Macedon. So he had already had control of everything over here in the Mediterranean. So that when he came over and he took over, so this is a better picture, a better depiction. It's like you. Alexander came from over here in Greece, Macedon. So when he came over, he took over all of this, which had been from the Medo-Persian Empire. But it wasn't just like, okay, well, he beat Darius, so he de facto gets all of this land. He had to recapture all of these different, rulerships. And he went almost to India, and so he had all of these lands. All right, so it said that when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And that's him dying at an early age. All right, and the four notable ones, the four wins. Let's get this Maccabees.
This is First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, "And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes."
Right. Before we get into that, of course it's speaking about, Alexander the Greek freak, but the strength of Alexander, man, this dude was getting down. All right, I always speak about the siege of Tyre. Okay, so Tyre was its own island. Okay, right up there on the side of. Let me see if I can get a. So right over here, just to give you a reference point. And what he did when he went to go seize the city, he just built basically a bridge to the city. All right, he used a dam. You see, you had old Tyre, you had new Tyre. All right, so he basically sieged this city, tore it up, and then used the damage from the city to build a bridge to the island to take over the island. And it still stands to this day. So this is the original one that he built. And then he just built it up around it so that his army can come and take over the island. And this is what it looks like still to this day. That's a feat that's a marvel. That's persistence. He really wanted to take this land, and he put his mind to it. He was going to take it. He was a mighty general. I'll say. The Most High was working with him to take down all these lands and places. All right, now getting back to the scriptures.
So verse 2, the end of verse 1, it says that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. Verse 2, it says, "And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, and so much that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him."
Yeah, going into all of these different lands and areas that he took over. Okay.
"And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive."
Yeah, so that's when he divided his kingdom, okay, to Seleucus, to Ptolemy, to Antigonus, and to who am I forgetting? Lysimachus. All right, and they took over.
So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evil were multiplied in the earth.
Yeah, man, it said evils were multiplied in the earth because now you don't have just one ruler, taking over all these lands, but you got four devils, running the earth in any which way that they wanted to. And then that goes into another lesson when you start talking about, the king of the north and the king of the south. But yeah, it was many wars that followed that, and a lot of people died, and especially the children of Israel, we felt the big brunt of that. Okay. it's a little bit more. Yeah, keep reading in Daniel 8.
God, this is Daniel chapter 8, verse 9. It says, "And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land."
Yeah, speaking of Antiochus Epiphanes, okay, which that devil, he put some major hell on us. Go ahead.
"And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the hosts, and of the stars, to the ground, and stamped upon them."
Yeah, so let me see if I can get a picture of. Bear with me here. All right, yeah, that's perfect. All right, so when you look at this, this is Antiochus Epiphanes' kingdom. All right, and this is of course Egypt. So Jerusalem is about right here, towards the southern point of his rulership. Now, what you had in was the year 168. Matter of fact, we got it in here.
Yeah, don't say it here.
Right here.
Oh, Khan, yep. It says in 168 BC.
This is from Wikipedia.
Khan, in 168 BC, Antiochus led a second attack on Egypt and also sent a fleet to capture Cyprus. Before he reached Alexandria, his path was blocked by a single elderly Roman ambassador named Gaius Popilius Laenus, who delivered a message from the Roman Senate directing Antiochus to withdraw his armies from Egypt and Cyprus, or consider himself in a state of war with the Roman Republic. Antiochus said he would discuss it with his council, whereupon the Roman envoy drew a line in the sand around Antiochus and said, "Before you leave this circle, give me a reply that I can take back to the Roman Senate."
Yeah, they forced his hand. They punked him. All right. So as you can see, Rome's coming up in power right around this time because, like I said, this is the kingdom of Seleucus. This is the kingdom of the Ptolemies. But all this, that was, Cassander had land, Lysimachus had land, and Antigonus had land. But by that time, Rome was coming up. So it had been a great power in the world at that time. So when Antiochus came down here to, start flame with the Ptolemies and try to take over Egypt, that's when Rome had their back and they said, "Hey, look, you're going to tell me what's going on." And he had to tuck tail and go back to his empire up here in Antioch, which is in Syria, right north of Israel. But at this time, and I'm kind of jumping forward, he had taken away the sacrifice. So because he had taken away the sacrifice, the Israelites had rebelled. So as he's coming up, he was going to, squash the rebellion. Well, that's when, he put to death a lot of our people, seized Jerusalem, okay, and offered, did it say it on there?
It said, Khan, here it goes right here.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, Antiochus issued decrees forbidding many traditional Jewish practices and began a campaign of prosecution against devout Jews. Swine were strictly unclean to Jews, but Diodorus wrote, "Antiochus sacrificed a great swine at the image of Moses and at the altar of the Most High that stood in the outward court, and sprinkled them with the blood of the sacrifice. He commanded likewise that the books by which they were taught to hate all other nations should be sprinkled with the broth made of the swine's flesh. And he put out the lamp, called by them immortal, which burns continually in the temple. Lastly, he forced the high priest and the other Jews to eat swine's flesh."
Yeah. So, the devil is what the devil does. So that's the kingdom of the Greeks, man. These are one of the most vilest people on earth, along with, of course, the next kingdom, which is, the Romans. All right, and going into the next rulership of that leg of iron. All right, coming up from 168 BC to 476 AD. All right, they had a lengthy rule, and of course, iron is stronger than brass. Okay, brass is worth less, but that iron, iron weaponry, and that's really what Rome hang their hat on. They had those iron weapons, so they were able to take over, everyone from the known land, because they took over all of Europe to go with, Asia and the Middle East and North Africa. It was a power. This type of power had never been seen before. Every one is a one up to the one before it. Okay, let me see. So let's get Daniel 7. We're going to get Daniel 7 and 8. 7, 7, and 8.
This is Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. It says, "After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth, and devoured and brake in pieces."
Yeah, man, that's the military might of Rome, man. Wherever, they laid their hat was their home. But, and when they die, you gotta be, you have a sense of humor in this thing. But, like I said, man, all these lands, these were people that inhabited all these lands. And Rome came and they took them. All right? France, Spain, Germany, all these different lands, wherever, they had a military conquest, they pretty much won. All right? Starting with Caesar on down. Even before Caesar, they were, with that Gaius Papias Linnaeus, Africanus was Leo Scipio Africanus, Leo Scipio Asiaticus, where Africa and Asia is named after. All right, these are Roman generals. These guys took over. All right, go ahead.
So it says, it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns.
Yeah, so can we get the 10 horns real quick?
So those 10 horns are speaking about the Vandals.
Hold on. The Vandals?
Yep.
Let me see. Try to get them on here.
Is that it at the bottom, Vandally?
Yep, the Vandals.
Ostrogoths.
The Ostrogoths. Yep, right here.
Alemanni.
The Alemanni in this area. And these are the same maps. It's just they're not all on the same one. So, I had to use both of these. Go ahead.
The Franks.
The Franks.
The Visigoths.
The Visigoths in this area.
The Burgundy. Yeah,
Burgundy.
Burgundy.
Yep.
The Lombards.
Lombards. The Lombards,
Anglo-Saxons.
All right. And then Britons up here.
Heruli.
The Heruli.
And Suevi.
And the Suevi. Suevi. All right, so then this is just, pretty much the whole of Europe. All right, when you look at all these lands and you put them together, put these two maps together, it's pretty much, the 10 horns in which they overtook.
So it says, it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns.
Yeah, man, how was Rome set apart from all the other beasts? Right, it had a senate. All right. Instead of having just one rulership, it had basically a governorship, a council where multiple men sat and they had a vote, and they would politic on the issues, and that's how things were passed. All right, they didn't have a ruler until Julius Caesar came along, but that was already Rome was already old, hundreds of years old by then. Okay, Daniel 2.
So this is Daniel 2 and verse 40. It says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise."
Yeah, man, iron breakers and bruise, going back into the military might, the strength of the Roman Empire.
Oh, you want to read on?
Yeah, go ahead and read that.
It says, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay."
Yeah, so this is speaking not about in these ancient times, but in these times, okay? Because remember the deadly wound to the dead Rome, which was the beast, right? The original beast. That deadly wound was healed. Matter of fact, let's get that in Revelation.
Revelation 13.
Good.
This is Revelation 13 verse 12. Revelation 13 verse 11. It says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed."
Right, the deadly wound was healed, so the beast is back, and is back as NATO in the EU. So in these times, we're going back to Daniel, was that Daniel 7? Fuck it. Going back into Daniel 2, where it talks about part strong and part weak, a kingdom being divided, with the clay, the miry clay, and the iron. That's speaking about, NATO and the EU. And you had some strong countries like Germany, like America, like the UK. And you had your weak country, the pigs countries, Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. These countries were weak. So you had the strong mixed with the weak, and the strong had to put up the weak. Okay, had to bail them out when the currency started to tank. Okay, that's where you get your Brexit, where the British, the United Kingdom, had to separate themselves away from the rest of the European Union in order to, quote, save its own ass. Okay, so that's really all we really wanted to get into. So now you should have a good base on, the four beasts, the statue, the head of gold, the silver, the brass, the iron, and the miry clay. Before we go, we gotta get the end of that though.
So this is Daniel chapter 2 verse 44. "And in the days of these kings shall the power of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed."
Right, what's that kingdom that will never be destroyed? Of course, it's the kingdom of heaven. All right, the rulership, a forever rulership that we are currently waiting on, and it's getting closer and closer day by day.
"And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms."
Yeah, man, it's not going to be left to other people, man. Are we going to have our rulership back, man? We're going to be put in our correct and direct place. Okay?
"And it shall stand forever."
It's going to stand forever, man. And ever and ever, ever.
"And for as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, The great power hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter.
Yeah, man, that's Yahweh Shai, ultimately the representation of this stone, that's cut out the mountain with hands. And it says that, if it came and it break the statue, all right, Yahweh Shai is gonna, as they say on Game of Thrones, break the wheel. All right, you had your Babylonians, you had your Greeks, you had your Medo-Persians and your Romans. You had your Americans, your Russians, your Chinese, so on and so forth, man. Yahweh Shai gonna come and he's gonna break all of that up. All right, and you're only gonna know the rulership of the Israelites, man, into perpetuity, forever and ever. All right.
And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure.
Hey, man, this dream is certain, man. This is gonna happen. Everything else in the dream already happened. We're just waiting on the rock, okay, the stone, to come in and shatter the rest of the fucking body, man. Everything else had already happened. That's how we're able to go over this lesson, because it already happened. All right, and the Most High made it. To them, it was a mystery in these times. You can get these answers, but He made it for us to be able to interpret in these times. That this is a faith builder. Like, man, look, all this has already happened. So, as brother read, hey, this dream is certain. All right, that means it's definitely gonna happen. Can we get the etymology on the word certain?
God. This is the etymology on certain. It says determined, fixed.
It's been determined. The fix is in. It's in a set position. All right, in time, that's gonna happen.
Reliable, sure, assured.
Assured, you are assured this is gonna happen. It's coming from a reliable source. Okay, Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, a man or a power that cannot lie.
Determined, resolved, fixed, settled, established, placed beyond doubt, sure, true.
Placed beyond doubt. There's no doubt that this is gonna happen, man.
Proved, unerring, to be depended upon.
You can depend on this, man. You can, this is something that this is a faith builder, man. Everything has already happened, and everything's gonna come to pass. With that being said, Lord's will, you were edified, and we give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, B'Shem, Yahweh Shai, B'Shem Rakar Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, the men, the women, and the children who follow. Shalom.
Shalom.